We have some new CNN reporting breaking overnight on the controversy that simply will not go away for President Trump, and that's the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Sources telling CNN top administration officials will gather tonight at Vice President J.D. Vance's official residence for a strategy session. And the goal, we're told, is to form a unified response to the Epstein situation. Now expected to attend the dinner with the Vice President, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Now you'll remember Blanche held a lengthy interview last month with Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted to conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse minors. We now know there are audio recordings and a transcript of that interview, and the Justice Department is weighing whether to release those materials. Let's bring in CNN's Elena Treen at the White House this morning. Elena, this is your reporting. What more are you learning about tonight's strategy session?
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting, that the fact that the vice president is going to be hosting these top Trump administration officials, really the ones who have been the leaders in kind of handling the administration's, entire handling of this Epstein case, that they'll be meeting tonight at the vice president's residence. I'm just going to walk through who's going to be there again. So White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, of course, the vice president who is the one hosting this dinner, Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And as you mentioned, Jessica, it's not just about strategizing over, what is going to come, the administration's posture on all of this, but also trying to present a united front, because we have seen some divisions within the Trump administration and between really the White House and the Justice Department as well on how all of this has been handled. Now, this meeting comes, as we broke yesterday as well, that we know that there was an audio recording made when Blanche went to Florida to sit down and interview Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, a Jeffrey Epstein associate, someone who's been convicted for sex trafficking and other crimes related to him. He interviewed her for more than 10 hours, I'm told. And now the Trump administration, and specifically the Justice Department, is going through digitizing that audio, transcribing it, redacting portions of it. And there's really a question of if and more so when they will release that publicly. When I talked to some officials here at the White House, they said that it could be as early as this week that they publish that information. Now, all of this as well is coming as we're hearing that behind the scenes there have been some conversations, these officials tell me more preliminary, about having Blanche do a press conference or even appear for a high-profile interview, including possibly with Joe Rogan. Again, they say that that is not decided. These discussions have been preliminary, but some of the background, again, is we're seeing kind of the messaging and the strategy over Epstein come into light, particularly at a time when we know that the administration had been very quiet and kind of struggling with how they wanted to move forward with all of this. And I also think one just thing to point out as well about some of these discussions is that they are kind of twofold. There have been people here within the White House who have said, a lot of the Epstein coverage has died down. The story is kind of quiet right now. Why bring this back up and resurface it at a time when they're more successfully kind of avoiding it? But then there's a lot of people as well who believe that this is an opportunity to retake the narrative here, control of that, and also try to control the optics more. So, stay tuned for whatever decision they make, but there'll be a lot of this discussed this evening when they gather at the vice president's residence.
Yeah, it will certainly be interesting to see what comes out of that. Elena Treen at the White House, thank you so much.
Tonight, Vice President Vance will host key members of the administration to discuss whether or not to release the tapes of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell's interview last month. The Attorney General, FBI Director, and others will attend. At the same time, the House Oversight Committee issued subpoenas to nearly a dozen former officials as it broadens its investigation into the Epstein files. Among those included Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Republicans are zeroing in on the former president for his documented association with Epstein. In a subpoena to Mrs. Clinton, Republicans cited her hiring of Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew in her 2008 presidential campaign. I'm going to bring in the group chat to talk about this. The thing that is confusing about this is if you're trying to tell the world that there's no longer conspiracy, do you have a dinner where you all get in a room privately and talk about it?
Yeah, and talk about what they're going to release and what they're not going to release. This does seem to be exactly the kind of thing that many of the people who will be in the room tonight at this dinner talked about before as the things that government did to hide the Epstein
Right,
files.
because this tape and this audio recording is of the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who was Trump's former attorney.
Right, and it includes Kash Patel and J.D. Vance, who both of them spent quite a bit of time talking about releasing the files, releasing the files. So look, they are now talking about what they are going to release and what they are not going to release. And they're doing it in a meeting that was not announced. Our colleagues reported about it. They found out about it. They're doing it behind closed doors. They're talking about what information there might be other than this, including this recording of the Maxwell interview. This does seem to be like I said, the kind of thing that would feed the conspiracy thinking of exactly the people who are part of it now.
And the number of names we saw in the subpoena from that House Oversight Committee, attorney generals from both administrations. So whether that's Merrick Garland, Bill Barr, Jeff Sessions, Eric Holder, Alberto Gonzalez from the George Bush years, which I don't know if people got into the Wayback Machine and remember the original sentencing deal that sort of kicked off the scandal out of Florida. That's a lot of names on that screen, Maria, and I hear it's not enough for you.
No, it's not, because these...
But it's bipartisan, at least.
Sure, and that's fine. And let's see if any of them have any additional information. But where's Alex Acosta, who actually was the one who originally negotiated the horrible deal with Epstein? Where is Bondi? Where is Kash Patel, the people who have actually seen the files? If you're going to subpoena Bill Clinton, because of course Republicans are like, oh, well, he was Epstein's friend. Guess who else was Epstein's good friend? Donald Trump. So this, to me, is, again, another distraction and another excuse for them to be able to say, oh, look what we're doing. We really do want transparency. That's just BS. They don't want transparency. They don't want anyone to testify that is going to be able to say that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, period.
With me now, former senior advisor for the Trump-Vance campaign, Brian Lanza, and senior advisor of our Republican Legacy Initiative, Rena Shah. Welcome to you both. Rena, you're up first. This meeting that's happening at the vice president's residence, and we've gone through the list of the attendees there. There's maybe going to be a press conference, interview on Joe Rogan with Todd Blanchard being discussed. What do you think? Does this quell the criticism from MAGA world?
Absolutely not. Just to be very frank about where we're at in this timeline, fresh subpoenas, victim statements, and a deepening political divide between the American public and this White House. Something like 90% of Americans, if you're looking at any polling on this, want these files released. That includes 83% of Republicans. How this chorus doesn't continue to get louder, I don't know. And it's all about what's at the core of the matter here. And this fallout really has stemmed from the Trump administration's real crazy reversal on releasing these so-called files, right? This was about them saying, we want transparency, we want accountability on the campaign trail. But hey, when you're sitting there in a position to do it, what's with the silence? What's with the I don't know? And what's with sort of the slow pace to get to a solution? I say this is about victim-centered justice over political gamesmanship. In recent weeks, I've heard Trump talk about wanting to protect innocents. He has a chance to do that right now. Victims aren't pawns in a political chess game, Victor. They're just not. They're the reason we fight for sunlight, and that's why we try to ensure in this country no one is above the law.
Brian, I was going to ask you a question. I'm just watching your facial expression as you're listening to this. What are you thinking?
Listen, I think we're going into 6 weeks about this. I think the MAGA base probably cared about it up until week number 2. And then by week number 3, the MAGA base sort of moved on. My phones were blowing up the first 2 weeks saying, what's going to happen? How can the president do this? And then the issue kind of got co-opted by the never-Trumpers in the media. And that sort of turned off the MAGA base to actually caring about this as much. Now, the administration has a problem. They've made commitments. There's a calendar. There's going to be a timeline of information that has to come out. That's what I suspect the meeting is at the vice president's office, is you have to talk about timeline. Because there's going to be release valves along the way.
Well, more than timeline, right. Is the meeting not an acknowledgement that they are bungling the messaging here, that they need all these people in the same room?
I think the fact that
6 weeks in, as you said.
I think the fact that we're 6 weeks into this shows that they have not moved sort of beyond, their initial response, and that they need something. They need release valves. The audio from the interview, that's a release valve. The transcript. These are things that it's drip, 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 and it shouldn't be.